It's been a special event for us to celebrate the incredible work that our organisation does. I'm really happy that so many people are here. At RAMH, we believe that strength, hope, inclusion, respect and empowerment, which are our four organisational values, are really the things that we live and breathe each and every day. So this is an opportunity for us to celebrate that and also to showcase the work that we do. Our theme this year, you might remember from the email confirming your place today. Assuming you all got an email confirming your place. You'll know that our theme is about the power of asking. It captures a truth at the heart of mental health. Asking the right question at the right moment can change and even save a life. Whether it's asking a friend if they're thinking about suicide, or shifting our perspective to ask what happened to you instead of what's wrong with you. These conversations open doors to understanding and compassion. We're honoured to welcome two outstanding speakers who embody this theme. That's you.
Was it? Oh, flipping heck.
Lawrence Brodie will explore how a simple act of asking someone about suicide could save their life. His talk will challenge us to overcome fear and stigma and remind us the courage and humanity there is in reaching out. Oh, shoot. Oh, no. I'm really sorry. I'm going to wing this.
So are we, so it's all right.
Oh, no, well, we're fine.
Yeah, we're fine.
Oh, no, we're going to be great. Lawrence is joined by Lauren. Lauren and Lawrence both work for Electrify. They're joint owners. I'm thinking that would be the best way to describe it. I'm trying to remember the notes that I wrote the other day. Their presentation today is about the power of art. So I'm going to hand over to them and I'll let you do it. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. Lovely to be here. Can you hear me at the back? Bad news then, isn't it? If you can hear me at the back. We're really pleased to be here. How long have we got? Till about 12:30?
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah. Somebody throw something at us, preferably that won't hurt when it's time to finish. Really delighted to be here this morning. Really delighted to talk to you about the work that's been going on across Scotland to prevent suicide over the course of this 2025, which I can't believe we're now into the last quarter of the year already. And we want you to get involved, don't we? Is that right? That's
so
the next
we're
slide.
going to share the story of Scotland's biggest ever conversation about suicide in our ongoing campaign that's been really successful, and hopefully start to have RAMH's biggest conversation about suicide as well. And as Peter said, that theme is very, very tying. So I can understand why we were invited here today to present. So we are going to be a little bit interactive throughout. So just to start with, we'd like everyone, if you've got a phone or a tablet with you, to join us on Slido. Either head to slido.com, the password there is suicide prevention, or scan the QR code if you can get that to pop up on your phones as well. And there's just a couple of questions that we're going to ask to kick us off.
You will also see when you go on to Slido that there's a Q&A section, and we really would love your questions this morning. So it's there throughout the morning. We will stop and have a little Q&A section, and obviously you can talk to us in real life as well. But you'll see there's two tabs that you get. One says Q&A and one says polls, and in a moment Lauren will put the first little question up. Here we go.
Yeah, so just going to start with a bit of a word cloud to get us going. So when we say the word suicide, what do you think? And you can just, if you type in single words, you can type in more than one, but just do them as single words and we'll start to populate that. If the QR code was hard to kind of scan from the back, do just go to slido.com as well and type the passcode in. You can see there's a couple of people there.
There's
four
people
participants typing. Brilliant.
How many here? About 70 people? Lots of people.
And as you can see there, if there's a word that somebody else types that you also put in, it increases the size. So
You're a cheery lot so far, aren't you? I can do it. That's fine. You do it.
It's interesting to see that hopelessness there is one of the bigger words, because actually a lot of what we're going to show today also flips that, and we're going to talk about hope and the power of hope as well throughout the campaign, which was a very, very important part of it. Lawrence, what word would
I
you
thought I'd
pick
come to
out
the
of
back
there?
to give some love for people at this end of the room. What strikes me, I mean, it's quite interesting. So stigma being there as a word is really interesting. We know that if you are in a marginalized community, then your risk of suicide increases. The suicide statistics in recent years have consistently showed us that people who die by suicide are 2.5 times more likely to live in a marginalized community in some of the poorest parts of the country compared to the least poorest parts of the country. And I think stigma is something that's a massive thing in terms of the work that we are trying to do. The interesting thing for me, I don't know how you feel about this, Lauren. The interesting thing for me is that although there's quite a lot of negative words there, and I understand why, because of course the loss of somebody to suicide is unbelievably final, and it's something you live with for the rest of your life. And Lauren and I now know far too many people who have lost. But I do go back to that word hope you were talking about, because we are seeing changes now in people's attitudes to suicide that we hope might just be generational. And that's something, whilst it does not take away from the fact that in 2024, 704 people lost their lives, and every one of those deaths it's a horrible tragedy. But we see opportunities for things to be better. The fact that we're having this conversation today, the fact that you've invited us along, that we're really talking about suicide now in a way that, frankly, when we first started this work 5 years ago, you wouldn't have. Not, well, you might have, but generally speaking, there was less talking about it. Do we ask another question? Oh, here we are.
Just going to move along to the next question. Have you ever had a conversation about suicide personally?
This won't come up straight away. We're going to reveal it in a dramatic. Lauren's got a drum roll. Have you?
Do we? I can make a drum roll.
I'm tempted to vote, but I'm not allowed to vote. It's not my turn. How many got? 33 votes so far. A few more to get in. I don't know about you, Peter. I'm hoping this is quite a high number. Hoping it's quite a high number. Should we have a look?
Yeah.
A high number.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Few. What we would have expected.
We've now got a twist on the question.
So have you ever asked someone directly about suicide, or if they're feeling suicidal?
What would your answer be, Lauren?
My answer would be yes now, but if you'd have asked me this a couple of years ago, it would have been no.
Mm-hmm. Hard though, isn't it?
It is hard. $31 have we got there? Another 10 seconds.
Should we have a look?
Whoops. I'm going too far. 82.
And you'd expect, because that's high though. I mean, you'd expect a drop
high.
because it's actually really hard to have a conversation about suicide and to actually ask somebody are you thinking about taking your life? And there's loads of reasons for that. We can feel, what if we get it wrong? What if we look like a muppet? You know, what if they say yes?
Also, what if they say no?
Yeah. We hear a lot about the double bounce, the need to ask twice. It's a big thing to say to somebody, yes, I am. Should we explore some more? Oh, yeah. Who are those two handsome people? That wasn't a joke. So this is Lauren.
Hi.
Lauren co-owns Electrify with me. She is our creative director. You moved to Scotland 7 years ago. She never remembers.
No, feels longer.
She moved to Scotland 7 years ago for love. It wasn't work. And then 4 years ago became co-owner of the business alongside me. And everything that you see this morning when we show you some of the examples and some of the work that's been done it has come from Lauren and her team. She is an extraordinary creative. And I always say to people, and this is the soppy bit, she's the best person I ever worked with. So you're in good company this morning. She will not say anything nice about me.
No, I won't. No, nothing nice to say. No, so Lawrence is our founder and managing director. He set up Electrify 10 years ago. It's our 10th birthday this year, 10th year, which is exciting. And Lawrence has his own lived experience as well that he's brought into this particular campaign. And we work as a creative communications agency specifically with the third sector. So 95% of our clients are charities, and our values align very well to that sector. And we are also the strategic communications lead for Suicide Prevention Scotland, which is where this campaign comes in.
Yeah. So I don't know how familiar you'll be. I don't intend to spend the next 25 minutes giving you a lecture about Suicide Prevention Scotland, because it would probably be quite boring. But just to kind of set a bit of context, because we're from Electrify, but we're here today talking about our work with Suicide Prevention Scotland. So as it says, this is the official line. Somebody wrote it, which I think was probably me. Suicide Prevention Scotland doesn't actually exist. It isn't a company, it isn't a charity, it's a group of people that work together from organisations and individuals who are part of the Scottish Government and COSLA's joint suicide prevention strategy. And we've branded that Suicide Prevention Scotland. It's a very unique way of working. Anybody from government in the room today? Are you? Will you report it back if I say anything? Okay, I've done this gag before. It's a really interesting way for government because, in fact, they're letting go. They're trusting people who have experience to work in this space. Government isn't always very good at that. But actually, they trust our community to work together. Of course, we report into them. They're heavily involved in our meetings. They're reviewing our work. They're seeing what's happening. They're not, walking away. But this incredible group of people come together. And it's been built over the last almost 3 years since the launch of our 10-year strategy in 2022, which is called Creating Hope Together. Now, just into you're good at this. She knows where I'm going to go into the next thing. The strategy is based around 4 outcomes, 4 strategic outcomes. There's outcomes, there's leads, there's all sorts of things. And each of these outcomes is led by a national organisation. So Samaritans look after, create a safe environment to prevent suicide. Not necessarily my words, basically a whole of society approach. How do you make society everybody's business? So it's not just saying suicide prevention sits over here. We can influence what happens in people's lives in every single decision we make, the type of house you have, your financial circumstances, your general physical health and well-being, and so on and so forth. So they're looking at the whole of society picture. RAMH look after the second one. This is basically about public awareness, social movement, and stigma. Stigma kind of round all of that. Public awareness is what we're talking about today. So this work sits with RAMH, who are effectively the people that we report into for delivering this work. Then we have Change Mental Health and Penumbra, who work together. They're looking at what happens to people who are bereaved. The chance of suicide if you've been bereaved can increase by 10%, which is actually really, really high. So they're looking at people who are in that type of crisis situation. And lastly, Public Health Scotland, they lead the fourth outcome. It's about data, evidence, lived experience. And much of their work almost crosses right round all the work, because it's about being rigorous in terms of what we do. That's the end of the lecture. There'll be an exam at the end. So we have 4 incredible people here, and we're going to talk much more about them because they're really important this morning. We're also then, so that's the first part of the campaign. We're also then going to talk about the second part of the campaign as well. And we've got some brand new information that nobody has heard before, almost nobody's heard, that we're going to talk about in a little while as well. The biggest thing we are trying to do...
Whoa. Not me. There's something in the room.
So while Lauren tries to fix that, that's the end of the presentation. Thanks very much. We've got to the end.
What the heck? Right, where were we?
One of the things that we've we bang on about this like the whole time, is that traditionally suicide prevention campaigns in recent years we have a campaign for like 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and then we pat ourselves in the back and we go home. And then we come back and we say a year later, 2 years later, we should do a suicide prevention campaign. And we do it for 6 weeks. And then we bugger off home again, right? The 2 people standing here are like 2 people who are refusing to accept that as an inevitability. The only way we prevent suicide is working at it every single day, literally every single day. So when we talk about campaigns, we're not talking about something that here's a launch of a campaign, here's the end of the campaign, here's a report. We talk about we go again and we go again and we go again. And until every single person is safe, we don't stop. And that's the pressure we're putting on government as well, to make sure that the funding is there to allow us to keep doing this. What we did last year was, and again, this is very little strategy we're going to talk about today, but we thought a little bit about how do we build a framework for campaigns that moves us forward from doing just the idea of 6-week blocks. The last major campaign was in 2020, which was the launch of United to Prevent Suicide, that some of you may have seen. But United to Prevent Suicide was always intended to be more of a social movement, kind of democracy of letting people be involved. So we went through a process last summer to look at how campaigns should work in future, so that we can make sure that the right messages that we have to deliver to people are there. So this model here, again, don't worry about being tested on it, was around saying we have on one side a social movement, and on the other side we build up public awareness. And it's public awareness that we're going to talk about today. Loads of work on United to Prevent Suicide ongoing. Maybe you can invite them next year and they can talk about some of that work, which will have progressed. But this is about how do we engage people, build awareness, and create change.
And we're going to talk a little bit about co-production next. So the campaign was entirely co-produced, meaningfully co-produced, not only with those that feature in it, but with a wider group of people with lots of different experience, which I'll come on to. And I mentioned this earlier on the word cloud, but it does have so much hope within it. And that was something that came out from the co-production group, that there has to be hope shown throughout the campaign. And we needed to get that balance right. So that was one of the kind of top things that came out from the co-production group. The makeup of the group included those with lived and living experience. And there's a lived and living experience panel as kind of on the side of the Suicide Prevention Scotland Delivery Collective that Lawrence briefly spoke about. So there was lots of people off that panel that were involved, and also people from the United to Prevent Suicide movement that came forward when we kind of called out for this campaign being produced. There was professional and practice experience, so people working in this space, bringing their expertise to the table, and also really importantly academic expertise from the Academic Advisory Group, which is headed up by Rory O'Connor, who is really, really good in this space. world known for his research in suicide and suicide prevention. So we had lots of different people round the table as part of that group.
Probably also worth saying that there's crossover as well.
Yeah.
Many of the people that have, and actually we're moving away from the word professional. We're moving away to I work in, because in fact there are many people who might not be defined as professional but have enormous experience. So, but Rory, one of the world's the foremost expert in suicide in the world, is bereaved twice by suicide. Our national delivery lead at Suicide Prevention Scotland lost her uncle to suicide. So sometimes we talk about, three perspectives, but very rarely is it ever as black and white as that.
And safeguarding was obviously hugely important within that process, but it was really important that we got lived experience into this campaign, and that's where all of the ideas have came from. We're there as the vehicle to kind of facilitate that, but this group was core to everything that was produced. I'm going to go quickly just through 4 steps.
Can I ask a question? Has anybody co-produced a campaign or a project here, just out of interest, where you devolve the power away? Good. Very good. See if our 4 steps equate to your 4 steps.
So 4 tips. First of all, building a relationship's really important. Getting to know people before you go straight into the process. And Shona, who we'll talk about a little bit more, lost her son Dylan to suicide. And one of the things that we were shocked, because she was shocked that we asked her, what was Dylan like as a person when he was alive? And she was like, do you know what, when working in suicide prevention, because she does a lot of stuff, lot of talks and things, she's like, nobody's ever actually asked that, because everyone just goes straight into death or suicide or the kind of circumstances surrounding that. So building a relationship might seem like the most obvious thing, but it is so important to get to know the group before you go anywhere near any of the actual work that you want to do together. The next one is letting people lead, as Lawrence said, letting go of control. But also, we've got a note on there about the awkward silences that are sometimes there. That's fine. People just sometimes need time to think and respond, and we're not there to fill in all of the gaps. So you need to build in a lot of time to let other people lead in a way that works for them.
He says, interrupting. Love an awkward silence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thanks.
Listening is really important. Listening is a huge element of the campaign as well, in terms of the key messages that came up from the group. But we talk about listening for clues. So the next question can be found in the answer to the last one. And whenever we do co-production, whether it was in this project or other projects that we work in with charities, the people often ask, what can we have a pre-list of questions? And the answer to that from us is always no, because actually the conversation's way more important, and your questions come from what people tell you. So actually not going overly prepared for every session. I mean, we did have session plans, of course, but they kind of weaved the path themselves in terms of what we discussed. And then the last one, which is super important, is making sure that there's a good feedback loop in place, particularly when you bring in lots of people around the table. That process of feedback is so important, but particularly telling people how their input has been used or not used, which is sometimes the more awkward bit, when somebody comes up with what they think is the greatest idea, but actually you kind of have to gently move them away from that. So the feedback loop is so important, and we built that into every session that we did, in terms of what we've taken from the last session and what we're moving forward with and what we're not moving forward with. So one of the first things that the group did as part of this campaign was set some principles. So we wanted to normalise the idea of talking about suicide. We need to continue that theme of talking about suicide, because not enough people do it. But we also wanted to give people confidence to ask about suicide, and that's where the asking is really important. So it was the two sides of the coin, because talking's great, but if people aren't ready to talk, we also need to be prepared to ask them, and who is the onus on in terms of opening up. And really importantly, we wanted to have somewhere centrally through Suicide Prevention Scotland where we could direct people to, because a lot of the questions came up if I ask someone and they say yes, and I need some resources, some help, some support. Obviously, there's lots out there, but where can we point people to as a bit of a call to action for the campaign? So it was really important that we developed something to send people to as well. So that was the 3 campaign principles that came out of the group. And time-space compassion as a concept was really weaved throughout the whole thing. Everything that we do at Suicide Prevention Scotland considers time, space, and compassion throughout it.
Just hands up if you've heard about time, space, compassion. Okay, mixed. There's another presentation in that we can get you as well. So producing a campaign is not about me and Lauren sitting, stroking our chins and coming up with some kind of devilishly clever idea. That's not what our creative communications agency is about. We don't do that. And so sometimes people say, would you pitch to us? And we'll say, no, we won't. Because you create with people. You don't parachute in and say, here's the plan. You actually co-produce with people. And that is central to our kind of culture in terms of what we do. We're experts in telling stories, but we can't possibly be an expert in each person's life and their experiences. And so it's vitally important that we take those 2 bits together. So, quick walkthrough of what we did with the group that met basically every week for about, or every 2 weeks, sorry, for about 18 weeks. It was a fast-paced process to keep it moving forward. So we started by looking at data and ways of working. So ways of working, just how we would function as a group so that we could move quickly through the gears. But the first thing we presented to the group was an analysis of what people's confidence in suicide was like. And we ran a survey in December 24 that was based on an identical survey RAMH ran in March 2023. There hadn't been any data gathered in that intervening period, which was a concern to us. So we ran the same questions, at least to be able to get some sense of what's the position then and now. The answer is confidence had plateaued substantially. There had been an improvement in 2020 after the launch of United to Prevent Suicide. It dipped away and then it was just bumping along. So we knew we had something that we needed to fire back into action.
I'm going to attempt to use this again. I'm scared. Oh, we're good.
We established the campaign principles, which Lauren has touched on, that we agreed as a group. If I had £1 for every time Lauren talked about the 2 sides of the coin, I would have
lots of coins.
Lots of coins.
Mm-hmm.
Probably wouldn't be that rich, but you get the gist. We then spent time looking at messaging, and we built a matrix, which was literally a physical, visual thing that had lots of different messages. And we tested out tolerance about what people thought about different types of responses. And it's around this point that the group started to show their sense of what they were looking for as they start to sort of find their groove. And it became clear they wanted a bold campaign. Now, I get you might say, well, of course, everybody wants a bold campaign. And we thought that as well. And we've been with plenty of clients and plenty of co-production groups over the years where people have said, let's have a bold campaign. And then we've produced bold ideas and they've all got flipping heck. That's too bold. Not this group. This group kept going bolder, bolder, bolder the whole time, to the point at which our colleagues at RAMH, sponsoring this work, if you like, on behalf of the government, were saying to us, we would never produce a campaign like this. If I can be very blunt about it, they wouldn't have the balls to do it. It's not a criticism of anybody, but it's the value of lived experience driving something, saying we don't improve people's lives. We don't reduce suicide by tiptoeing around this. We go all in. And it didn't matter each time we went, and we thought we might reach a point where they'd be like, okay, that's enough. And we never quite reached that point. And you'll see with the campaign itself how bold it was. For the first time ever in Scotland, we independently tested both the messaging and also, you'll see in a second, the creative approaches. So we used, and again, we don't have endless budgets. This is, don't think we're sitting here like bathing in cash, except Lauren's 2-sided pound coins. But what we were looking at was, okay, we have a very engaged co-production group. We've got people who care deeply about this. And so they are understandably going to be really switched on. But what happens with Joe Public out in the street sees it? is it going to scare them? Is it going to put them off? Is it going to inspire them? So we tested both the messaging and we tested both the visual ideas and the concept, which we'll explain in a moment. And reassuringly, they came roughly within line with each other. We certainly took one or two bits of feedback back to the group for us to consider and reflect on. We actually used, just aside for anybody who's interested in this type of stuff, we used a New Zealand startup company called Sticky Beak to do our testing. Small budget, literally small budget, to ask some questions to a general adult population. So again, not the kind of money to go out and do massive focus groups and YouGov stuff. This was very much a self-serve testing platform, but it helped us do something that had never been done before, which was brilliant. We did all the testing, we got into the planning and production. The planning and production, thinking about where we would be. We were going to be all across Scotland, but principally focusing on the major population centres, which again is a budget decision. Sadly, the people of Dumfries are still angry with us that we didn't get anything out of home in Dumfries and any roadside. The money doesn't last forever. But Aberdeen, Dundee, Inverness, Glasgow, Edinburgh, we're all focused. We also managed to secure a little bit of extra money from government for the Western Isles through a different pot of money, which was great. And a huge digital campaign as well. Delivering the campaign, evaluating on it, reviewing it, and so on and so forth. So all this going on, fortnightly calls online with people from all over Scotland, a group of about 16 people, and it got us to, I think, what comes next, but I can't see the next slide, so I can't quite remember.
So we'll share the kind of first phase of the campaign, but we'll just introduce the kind of 4 stars, the 4 ambassadors, as we call them. So Claire lost her nephew, Jerry, to suicide, and her mum, Prue, and also her brother-in-law, Sandy. She's a lovely, lovely lady. I spent a lot of time with her filming at her place in Haddington, and she came through to the group through the United to Prevent Suicide movement when we put the call out. So that was lovely to kind of have somebody that really wanted to be part of it, and she then wanted to share her story, was happy to be on film and be part of the campaign, which was lovely.
Ross now lives in Orkney. He is a member of the Lived and Living Experience panel at Suicide Prevention Scotland. Funnily enough, I had nothing to do with Ross becoming involved in this, but I actually have known Ross for about 12 years, and when his name sort of popped up in our discussions, I was like, oh, I know that guy. Ross made a plan to die by suicide in 2017. He reached a point at which he had enough, in simple terms. And it was the support and love and compassion of his friend Megan that made a difference. And she took him to climb a mountain. And he talks about the fact that it wasn't the sitting at a table face to face, getting sort of, counseled by a friend. It was just walking and being side by side, and it wasn't always deep conversations. And it's a really good lesson to all of us about suicide prevention. You don't suddenly need to become a psychiatrist when somebody expresses that they are struggling. It's kindness and compassion. It's actually, the vast majority of the time, doesn't require a medical response, if you like.
We've also already talked a little bit about Shona, who lost her son Dylan in 2016 to suicide. And Lawrence talked earlier a bit about when you're bereaved by suicide, you're 10 times more likely to consider taking your life. She also lost Dylan's auntie Vanessa, her sister-in-law, to suicide a couple of weeks later as well. So she brought her lived experience of bereavement to the campaign, and we're going to play a film from Shona, so I won't say too much more on her just now.
Laura attempted suicide 3 times. She grew up in a rural agricultural setting on a farm. Her dad was a man's man, if I can just put it like that. Her mum had a very, very long history of extremely poor mental health, including long periods of time spent in hospital. And Laura struggled with all that. She struggled with the fact that on the surface, what have you got to, and she talks about this, what have you got to worry about? There's nothing wrong with you. Your life's fine. You've got all the things you need. But it wasn't. And it's taken her a really long journey I think she's 40 this year, to get to a point where she's now comfortable with herself But that's come at a real cost in terms of her family relationships.
So in terms of the sort of lead piece of creative, we brought everybody together. We actually hired out Observatory House at Carlton Hill and got these four lovely people together. And you'll see the creative that's revealed, but each of them wrote a letter to either the person that they'd lost or to themselves. And this was the idea that what the group really wanted to do. There's so much power in somebody writing a letter. There was lots of considerations around what that might mean to people. You know, there's a close alignment with suicide notes and all sorts of things that we explored as a group. But this was the thing that they wanted to do, and it took everyone to a deeply, deeply personal place, and particularly kind of reading it out in a small group in a room like that was so powerful. So we just want to share one of the sort of raw letters from Claire, and you can just get a sense of kind of how powerful that was for her doing that at the time.
Dear Jerry, you kept quiet about feeling suicidal. While she spoke about your worries and struggles in life, I listened but didn't pick up on the intensity of your pain. You masked this well through your laughter and jokes. I wish you had talked to me about how bad you were feeling. Your suicide has left us with such sadness, so many unanswered questions and what ifs. Being bereaved by suicide has made me seek out information to understand more. This has helped me to support my son Andrew through his own dark times. Even though suicide is such an upsetting thought, I have learned to ask Andrew if he felt suicidal and had a suicide plan. These uncomfortable questions helped him to talk in a space deeper below the surface. And although it was difficult for him to share his painful thoughts about suicide, and heartbreaking for us to hear, this has helped us to understand how he's really feeling and possible ways to support him. I've sat with Andrew on many nights, sometimes in silence, just to be there with him. I've encouraged him to talk, to be open and share his painful thoughts and feelings with me. It's been difficult to get him the help he needs, but we are getting there together. He is not on his own. We are slowly moving forward. It takes time, and no doubt we will have many ups and downs to come. But there is light in the darkness. There is always love and hope. There is help out there, but reach out, talk to someone, don't give up. Our experience has shown us it's finding the right help from the right person, and this takes time, but it is possible. We never got to say goodbye to Jerry. We miss you dearly, your smile, your laughter, your funny jokes and voiceovers. Your suicide has changed our lives, but please know we hold you close in our hearts forever. Love you loads, Claire. It's a hard thing to read, isn't it?
And we worked with each of those four people, with Tracy from RAMH, our safeguarding support as well, to write these letters in a way that worked for each person, and each person did it differently, as you can imagine, in a way that worked for them, but incredibly powerful. Oh, we were meant to do a competition and we've messed it up. Okay.
You missed your up.
I know, I missed my opportunity. Right. So I have, the campaign was called What If a Conversation About Suicide? Like, it is, you might say it's quite wordy, it doesn't really come off the tongue. We don't care. That's not the point. We're not here to make gimmicks. I'm clear about that. Now, when I say we're not here to have gimmicks, I do have one mug with me, which is, it's good. I was hoping we were going to test it, see if anybody knew the name of the campaign, and we were going to mess that up. But I'm still going to give this mug away. So I'm looking for somebody that comes up. Should we say the best question when we get to the questions?
Yeah.
Right. Q&A bit. Remember the Q&A bit. If you've got your slide open, ask a question. Because we're looking, I'll put this mug here. That should be a motivation for everybody. That's worth at least £1. Suicide is a topic that makes us nervous, and it can feel like the hardest thing in the world. What if I say the wrong thing? Could I make the situation worse? Maybe I'm worrying over nothing, and I would look foolish to bring it up. But here's the thing lots of people don't realise, and by the way, lots and lots of people do not realise it. It's really clear in research that talking about suicide is the best way to prevent it from happening. We know in this environment here, that's a thing. Take that out into the street, and there's far less awareness of that. So we set out to have this country's biggest ever conversation about suicide.
I wish more than anything that we'd both been able to talk, because I wasn't ready to let you go.
I believed that it would be the only way to end my suffering.
Your suicide has left us with such sadness, so many unanswered questions and what ifs.
And it's like nothing will ever change. It will and it can if you stay alive. This is what I wish I could have told myself before I tried to end my life. I mean, it is the hardest thing, is talking.
Jerry did talk loads and I did listen, but I'd never ever thought to say to him, are you feeling suicidal?
People are scared and don't know how to react when you talk about suicide, but you don't need to be an expert.
And the most important thing you can do, I think, is listen.
Standing on top of the mountain looking out gave me perspective and headspace I couldn't find below the clouds. With Megan, it was really a sense of that non-judgmental side where I could say things to her that I was feeling and that she wouldn't think negatively of me.
So it wasn't about your friend fixing everything for you, it was just about giving you that chance to find some hope.
Just about being there for someone and just saying you're not on your own.
I think if you've found the courage or the strength to ask for help and it doesn't seem to come, not to be discouraged by that, but to ask again.
You were there to listen and make me feel a little less alone.
There is light in the darkness. There is always love and hope.
If you can just hang on for one more day, that day will turn into 2. Before you know it, you'll have managed to stay alive for longer than you ever imagined.
I wish that anyone had known how to ask you, are you thinking about suicide?
Hopefully you can see there's a ton of messages in that film, and that's how we brought those kind of key lines out of the letters into it. Behind that, from the wider co-production group, we had this sort of thematic framework. I won't go through all of these, of things that we wanted to make sure were included in a lead piece of content and in the campaign. So listening actively, talking, asking, obviously really important message there from Sean at the end, hope, bravery, encouragement. So we had this kind of thematic framework that we worked through, and actually it came naturally from what was written in the letters from the four ambassadors as well. So the more you watch the lead film, the more lines you kind of pick up on, and the amount of messages that are kind of delivered through that one piece of content at a couple of minutes. But there was lots more content off the back of that.
And we didn't intend this to quite end up in the way it happened, because you make a plan, but again, we like to keep our eyes and our ears open. And what became clear to us was we intended to capture the conversation around the letters, but the letters were the really important bit. And then there would be like little bits of social media clips around the conversation. And we sat there that morning, and each letter, then a conversation, then we had a break and a cup of tea. Went through the morning. And Lauren and I thought we would have to direct it quite a lot, direct the conversation. I spoke once, which is a new record for me. Lauren didn't speak at all. They literally took the conversation. We just let 3 cameras roll, and we realized what we had was extraordinary. It was peeling a window back on a type of conversation that if you've never had that experience, you just won't have seen. And so in the end, we were like, we need to think about this. So we created the conversation, which is 4 specific episodes where I think we took out maybe 1% of the conversation. There was one point where somebody named a location, which we took out because that's a risk. There was maybe one other little bit that wasn't quite right, but I mean, we left 99% plus in. Here's Laura to explain it.
What happens when 4 people with their own deeply personal experiences of suicide come together? One of the most extraordinary conversations you'll ever see. I'm Laura, and along with 3 others, we each shared a letter we'd written to a loved one or ourselves for our new campaign, What If a Conversation About Suicide Could Save a Life? Then we talked about what we've learned on our journey and what we want others to know. Because talking about suicide is the best way to prevent it from happening. This is the conversation from Suicide Prevention Scotland.
And if you haven't watched these conversations, they're on the Suicide Prevention Scotland YouTube channel. You can also find them at suicideprevention.org/whatif. If you work anywhere around this space, I would recommend watching them as an incredible way of learning perspectives from people who've been there.
We also had some individual films, which are the Finding Hope films, which was with each of the ambassadors, and we're just going to play Sean is just going to play one for time, just to give you a flavour of that as well.
He was funny, daft, had a fabulous sense of humour and a brilliant laugh, a totally infectious laugh. When I think about him smiling, I think I can hear him laughing. It was hard in his last sort of year because he didn't smile and laugh as much. All his effort was on getting through each day. Dylan was 18 when he took his own life. He had been suffering from body dysmorphic disorder for a number of years. We didn't really understand how much courage it took for him to get through each day. We knew what a struggle it was for him, but we didn't imagine that he was having any thoughts of suicide, and we never thought that we needed to ask him if he was suicidal. But with hindsight, now that would have given him the opportunity to talk more openly about how he was feeling, and that might have been the one thing that changed it for him. It's hard, but if you can ask someone how they're feeling, it doesn't have to be, are you suicidal? If you've noticed that they're not feeling themselves, you can ask them, how are you? I've noticed you're not feeling yourself. But it might lead on to then asking if they had suicidal thoughts. Saying it out loud is quite scary, but also, what if they say yes? What do I do? But actually, you don't have to do anything. It's not your job to fix it. It's just your job to listen. What you're doing is opening up an opportunity for that person to say, yeah, I'm not okay. If we'd known more about it, we might have talked to Dylan more about it. We might have asked him directly if he was feeling suicidal or having thoughts of suicide, and given him more of a chance to get the help that he needed. It amazed me all the time how strong he was just getting through every day. I wish people could have seen that.
That's just one of those films. And we had lots of content that went across digital, media, clips, quotes, so much that came off the back of that. We also did some very specific targeted national press. We actually gave each person one specific bit because they'd given so much of themselves at that point. We thought that was the best way to do it. Lawrence always jokes about Ross, who did the bit with the sun, and actually it was 3 blokes interviewing him sat around a table, and it was the most awkward experience you've probably ever had, because they were dancing around the topic of suicide despite that being about what they were going to write about.
It was the best thing, though. Have the chief features writer, the Sun, us taking him into a difficult place and realizing can have a conversation. So I would say it's fantastically awkward, but it was an exercise that has moved the chief features writer, one of the major media outlets in Scotland, into a place where I've done an interview with somebody about suicide. Whatever, insert your own bit in there.
As Lawrence spoke about, out of home across 66 sites in the major cities, couldn't get it everywhere, unfortunately, because the budget wasn't particularly big. And we also launched the Suicide Prevention Scotland website with a landing page of the campaign. So everything kind of tied together across all relevant media channels that we could possibly flood.
I'm going to suggest, looking at our time, should we skip to the impact and then come back to a Q&A?
Yeah. Okay.
Remember your Q&A questions. I'm about to look at my phone.
I think so, yeah.
All right. So we set out to have Scotland's biggest ever conversation about suicide, and yes, it happened. I hear that. And we're changing the narrative as the World Suicide Prevention Day story tells us. The campaign received by 3.5 million people. Target was 3.1 million. Increased that by over 10%. But actually, that's not as important as the next two statistics. Big headlines. We are having more conversations about suicide. Updates at the very beginning. The respondents of the 2007 and with families in a real opportunity. So,
do you want to go into the Q&A or
should we finish where we got to?
Into the next bit of the campaign? Yeah, okay.
Okay. So then what? Next. We always knew we wanted to do this. The conversations and the letters that were formed at the first stage, we had always felt there was an opportunity to build those conversations out. And so one of the ideas that we had on the kind of list of ideas was a bit further down the page that we said we'll come back to if this is all going well. So we developed a podcast, the What If podcast, and it's presented by Amy Irons, BBC presenter, radio, television, sport, entertainment. She was on Heart until the summertime. In the studio, we had our, go back one for every second, brought our ambassadors with us into our studio. Really do. There's the ones. Amy lost her partner, Wayne. She has spoken quite a bit about it. This wasn't really about her retelling her story. When I spoke to her, timing was just fortunate. I felt that after 7 years, she was in a place. This wasn't about her retelling. Or reading 4 episodes that we did. It was all co-produced. Lauren saying, what if we need to talk about suicide? We're all based around what? First one was introducing Royal Connaught we mentioned earlier on Gibson's. Lauren Sydney.
Rory. You said Rory.
Yeah. He's got absolute place called here.
God. Testing us now.
It's always good that
That's us.
Absolutely going.
Natalie.
Natalie Dackle.
Yay.
Don't tell her if anything sees it.
No.
Long year. Second one came from a throwaway comment from Lauren and I don't have dogs. But actually, we really put it a bit more. What we realised was it wasn't really the second episode. Brendan Rooney, I'm doing it, I'm visualising. Brendan Rooney, who's body performer. It feels bad saying it like our channel. Third one, this is the one that we thought maybe somebody watch the science actually work. A lot of problems. There are a lot of can't just prevent talk to somebody. For that in a looked at what if I feel like this was a narcissism. Also thinking about the fact that it's your responsibility. One of the guests on the came way more present than Mo Manson, who was involved in the 20s. Other asylum seekers. The timing has Pentagon Kennedy, Policy Network, and but the thing about fitting in, you often think else. He was a bloke, but he's a bloke. A bloke who had an adult diagnosis of autism, had recreational drug and alcohol. You know that 3/4 of suicide. The whole thing about fitting in, marginalised. 4 weeks, 2019, 1.1 million. And almost all of that is organically. It's not come from paid. There is some paid behind it. 3/4 of it has come from organic content, which shows that when you have the right content, people will engage with it. And we've delivered hundreds of pieces of clipped content, very social media, for people to watch Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts. Just dozens and dozens. I looked at the Instagram. I think we posted over 200 clips in the last 4 weeks. So we have flooded the market, which is deliberate. absolutely flooded it. I'm going to give you one more stat. 80% of the content don't follow suicide. People who follow us are very engaged. Of course they are. They care about it. And we care about them. We need people who are not interested in what we do. To be sitting in that 4 and 5, that's a passive aggressive move, isn't it?
It is. Well, actually, do you want Q&A or do you want the activity? Because we've only got time for one, I think. Everyone wants lunch now.
Let's do some questions. And please shout out questions as well. We are able to have real life, actual conversations. Shall I take the third question there?
Yeah, just scroll down is the more so we can see.
You've got the computer?
No, you've got the thing on the app, haven't you? I've just got the...
Okay. Well, loads of questions here. You'll be able to scan it on. You'll be able to. Oh, I see. Okay.
It's okay. You can. Yeah, you take the third one.
Right. I don't know who it's being asked of. Have you ever thought about suicide? But I'll answer it and say yes. 10 years ago, past June. And the thing I found, and I realised this only this year, was I don't think you think about dying. Some people might think about the pain stopping. That's what you want. You want the pain to stop. It's not thinking about, I'm going to kill myself. Actually, very little thought about that. But I don't want to be here. The pain is unbearable. The term that Rory O'Connor uses and other specialists talk about entrapment. That sense of you're absolutely defeated. Which way you look, left, right, up, down. So
I'm happy to take that kind of second one. I know you can maybe reveal some more of them on screen, but would you have or give a list of conversation starters? People may want to ask but not sure how to start the conversation. What would you recommend for this? My answer to that is to just ask directly if somebody is having suicidal ideation or thoughts of suicide. You can couch it all you like, but at the end of the day, we know that asking the question is what people respond to, and actually that kind of myth of what if I ask someone the question, will that then put the idea in the head? And we know that the answer to that is no. So you might notice that somebody isn't feeling themselves or acting how they normally act, and you could say that, I've noticed over the last couple of weeks you've not been yourself, but are you thinking about suicide? And if they say no, as we've seen in the films, you might need to ask it a couple of times, either in that conversation or in another conversation. So I don't know if there's a specific list of conversation starters. I think it's about asking that question as early as possible.
If you're following on the app as well, you can see the questions. Can't work out why they're not coming up on. Can't scan them on the screen, but you can see them in the app. So I'm looking at them. I'm going to take one here. Have you had any experiences with children, childhood suicide? So I have, and it was horrendous. About 5 years ago, we used to work at a school, and a girl in S3 took her life. Very difficult set of circumstances. Fundamentally believe her death was avoidable. Her parent in prison. The day before she died, she was told hard because the family was totally broken. It's very difficult.
I think just in terms of on children and young people as well, so this campaign specifically kept it quite broad in terms of public awareness, but it does specifically talk to adults. That co-production group was a co-production group of adults. One of the things that we've discussed a lot is doing something specific for children and young people, which would need to be totally different to the what if, because they'll need to tell us how they would respond to things, what channels would resonate with them. And so it needs to be a completely different campaign. And it is something that Suicide Prevention Scotland and RAMH are hoping to do, sort of maybe not quite next, but definitely over the next action plan. Is 26-27 is a specific campaign for children and young people, because it's a whole different space.
So let me take when someone is asking, when asking someone if they're thinking about suicide, how do you respond? Feel the response is harder than the past. I think that's a really fair point. As I said earlier on, the vast majority of people will not need a medical. Thinking about suicide, talking about suicide, and opening up is already the first step. So it's how you respond to them with compassion. Talk about mirroring language. Somebody says, isn't you need to become a psychologist. If somebody's at immediate danger, for most people, the minute they say I'm thinking about it, the chance of them carrying out that space, listening with compassion, funding with kindness, not being the person that has to always worry about it. You say yes, I'm going to have to fix it. You don't hold their hand. Either. If they can't keep themselves safe, then that's where you use them. But we know that most people who have suicidal thoughts aren't mentally ill. Does that make sense? They're just stressed. You need to understand the difference between stress, illness. Most people are stressed. Why, for those of you that are familiar with things like TBI, and so successful, 2 weeks of compassion, helping somebody just find a little way forward. We see that with walk-in centres. Yesterday, watch it, then you walk in. Many people, it's just not ready.
I think in terms of, I'll just pick up on the next steps question, because that's actually very fitting, because what is next? We need to keep amplifying this message throughout the rest of the strategy and into the next action plan. And what we are planning to do for the next step is bring a whole new batch of ambassadors together into co-production again, and kind of go back. So we've had phase 2 with the podcast, but go back to phase 1 of those individual stories, but actually thinking about somebody who has asked the question and has dealt with asking somebody and dealt with dealing with somebody with suicidal ideation and what that was like. So we're kind of going back around, and we're going to really refresh the content, but keeping that what if message central. One of the things we kind of skipped past was the toolkits that are like over 100 organisations have ordered toolkits and branded things up. It was great to see one of the banners with the East Renfrewshire Health and Social Care Partnership in the foyer downstairs. We've got to keep pushing that out in terms of resources as well.
Is it better to just ask about suicide outright, or could you ask if they're harming themselves? I think you would ask really. Something about language is really important. I've heard this before. People will sometimes say because, and it's not because of badness. I don't think I'm throwing anybody isn't meant in a bad way. It's meant because you're trying to just put it down because you're a bit anxious and nervous. What's the worst that happens? You look stupid. I look stupid every day with Do a couple more questions, then we'll finish. All right. Yeah.
Need to give you the big up mug away.
I know I'm looking.
What's the best question?
Somebody asked about. So I noticed there's a question about short-term funding. I totally get it. It's probably not something we hear it like at the ending and why we hear the problem about short-term funding. Our suicide prevention funding for our work was confirmed this year for the first time in 3 years. Last year, it was confirmed in mid-June when we had done May and half of June already, hoping that it'll be all right. Yeah, we also appreciate that. Bod, you were going to come up with a brilliant question. The data varies slightly depending on channels. Our split is roughly 60-40 female, which we're comfortable with because although men are 3 times suicide, many of those have women around their life. Question. So from that point of view, we do have numbers. I would always caution using our numbers in the sense that we look at each of the channels and see ourselves. Facebook has really good information about times, so does Instagram. We can see, generally speaking, that what we evening is more effective in those channels versus if we put something like links in the evening. We've actually found that first thing in the morning is more effective. I would look at the channels, you can see there is really useful. You can also see the type of content forms as well. We try different types of copy length, we try different words. Sometimes we'll write a post with like 50 words in it. It's all about constantly like seeing what will land best. And even when you think you've cracked what will land best, the next week is different again. There's the blooming algorithms and stuff like that happen. Let me look for one last question. There was one about encouraging tips for encouraging. How do you have any tips for encouraging? Do you have any tips for encouraging people to share this? I'll pass that to you. Tips on sharing stories.
I think, I mean, you know when you find people that have a willingness to share their story, but I think it's about going back to those kind of 4 things we talked about: building the relationship up, doing it in a way that's comfortable for them, making sure that people know that they can withdraw consent at any point is really, really important. And that's a quite a scary thing for us running campaigns. Actually, what if somebody pulls their consent after we've done all the filming? But that's okay. It's happened once when somebody withdrew consent to us in 7 years. So that's really important. But I guess it's giving them that time, space, compassion, that space to feel safe, to be able to share their story and doing it in a way that works for them. It doesn't need to be sticking a camera in front of the face. It could be a blog. It could be something recorded. I think it's just like all options are on the table, and it really is about building trust. Trust is the key thing that comes to mind for me.
I'm going to take 2 really quick. Sorry, this one here: support for staff who complete training. So tomorrow morning we are launching a new podcast series, totally separate training event, called You First, produced with Public Health Scotland. It's designed for people who work in emotionally difficult. 4 episodes that explores how you can look after yourself, what you might expect from the employer as well. So it's 4 episodes, each are about 20 minutes, presented by a counsellor and former journalist, Watson. They're really lovely conversations. Definitely say, have a look at that. That won't be a panacea for everything, but just you. The last one before Peter literally throws something to me was it was about how do we find people? I think the question I lost the exact bit. The essence was how do you find people? The more you do this, the more people come forward. So there is definitely a cycle. So some of our work is influenced by our National Living Experience panel, bringing them in. I fully expect that the next phase that Lauren is describing, we're going to have people coming forward. I don't know it's happening already. So we're creating an ecosystem where we're all helping to move it forward. So it might be tough the first time round, but it's easier. That's why we need to keep going. Done. Thank you.
Not an easy subject. So before I thank Lauren and Lawrence for their efforts today, if anything's impacted on you, will you take the helpful thing? The other thing, just to let you know, it's a really interesting thing about the funding. For us, it's a really difficult thing arguing our because all of our work is about early intervention. When people say to you, so what did you do? It's really hard for us to say, here's some stuff that we did. Because actually a lot of what we've done is stop things happening.
Yeah.
And that's a really difficult one, which is probably where that short-term cycle thing comes. Oh, you fixed it all, so we don't need to fund this anymore. And then lo and behold, I know one of the things you would have missed a bit that I did. So I gave some stats and figures about our organisation beginning during the AGM. And one of the things I didn't include because it was just too much information. There's evidence, very, very clear evidence, that this calendar year we've prevented at least three people from doing something. Now, we know from a Samaritan report that in Scotland cost £1.4 million in public service. Suicide in Scotland costs £1.2 billion overall. Yeah. So, and we think billion and million, they're close. You know, so 11 seconds, if you had a million seconds from now, 12 days' time, a billion seconds from now is in 32 years. They're massively different. So if we could have a fraction of that £1.2 billion, we'd not only save the public purse. So I want to thank Lawrence and Lauren very much. Remember you said you might not have enough. You might not have enough.
Quite another 20.
I know we've made.
So I'm very, very grateful for, well, not just for coming here today, but for the work you do. I hope everyone found that interesting. If you need more information, we know where they live. So if you can't get hold of them, contact me and I'll send you their details.
Yeah.
We'll stay in touch. So thank you very much.
Thanks.